Hello and welcome to this tutorial on composing at the piano. This is one of my favourite lessons to teach because the knowledge and understanding gained from this lesson can act as a passport to musical freedom if the same approaches are reapplied to other musical situations and other chord progressions. And from my biased opinion, being able to compose and improvise is a great way to spend and enjoy your time. So without further ado, let's get to it. As you can see on the screen, this lesson is based on the chord progression from Pachelbel's Canon in D. What's great about this progression is that it's an 8-bar progression as opposed to a 4-bar progression that we're used to hearing in most popular music. Added to this is that it sounds so strong in terms of where it starts and ends, which we can hear now. So I'm sure you've heard that before, and it's something that you probably all know and probably sing along to. So step one is to be able to play this nice strong bass line that you just heard. So if you look at the picture chords over here, you can see that the larger circles to the left with the letters written inside them, these show us the root notes for each chord. So we have our down the left hand side. So this needs to be easy for you, so I recommend that before we carry on you need to practice this enough times for it to become easy. So we'll continue once this is the case. So step 2 is to be able to play each of the triad chords in root position. Just as before, we need to pay attention to the root notes in the larger circles over here. Now, I could have made some picture chords that show you how to play each triad, but I want you to benefit from the freedom that comes with being able to build your own major and minor triads from the root note. So how can we build these major and minor triads? Some of you may have noticed this banner at the bottom containing these two formulas over here. So let's take a look and see how these work. We have key +4 +3. When we say +4, what are we actually referring to? Some of you may have guessed that it's 4 keys, so let's build one now. So here's our D. We'll start with D, which is our key, and we'll move up by 4 keys. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we've arrived at our first triad note. In this case, it's F sharp, which is the 3rd note from our major scale. So if we want to complete the triad, we can now do this by adding the next 3 keys from the formula. So 1, 2, 3. So we have our notes from the scale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. La, 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 1, 3, 5. So yes, we've managed to build a major triad. We need to be able to do this for a minor triad whenever we need to. So if you look at the chord symbols here, below the notes that we have, we can see that once we get to the B, we actually need a B minor chord. So we start by pressing B. This is our K, this is our key. Then we'll count 3, so 1, 2, 3. And then to complete that, we will count 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. La, la, la. And then we built our minor triad. So once again, you're going to need to practice this until it becomes easy for you. And you also need to practice playing through the progression using the major and minor triads when you need to. So we want to have our D, which will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to go down to our A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to go to our B, which is minor, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to go to our F sharp, again, which is minor, so 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 for our minor. Then we'll come to our G, which will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Then we'll go down to our D, which will be major, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. Then we'll go back to our G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And we'll finish off with our A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And then it comes back and finishes on a D. If you look at the picture chords here, I have not put a D here, but your ear will tell you and remind you that you need to finish off with a D chord, D triad at the end of this. So we'll continue once you've practiced that. Okay, in this next segment, we're focusing on the melody or the top line of the progression. If we look at our diagram, we can see that for each chord, we will be pressing 3 notes that will go above our bass note. In some of the cases, the triad is inverted, which means it's not in its root position. If we look at our first chord, just the right hand, we can see that the A is at the bottom. If it was in root position, it would be here on top, which is what we're used to by using our formula. We're used to that sound, but what we've done, we've inverted it. We've put the A underneath. The A is now at the bottom, inverted. Okay. What this does is create a top line that moves in step when we're going chord to chord, while still keeping the other chord notes happening beneath. So if I play that for you, we have that top note there, top note here, top note here, top note here, top note here, top note there, top note there, top note there, and we can end on a D. So once again, we have a moment where we'll need to practice this before it becomes easy, so then we can carry on. So we'll continue once you've done that. Okay, so this next segment is going to talk about ornamentation, which simply means to decorate the notes. There are different ways to decorate the notes. We are going to focus on the trill, the mordent, and the turn. So to create a trill, you will need to rapidly alternate between the current note and the note above, like that. When performing these ornaments, it's important to use the notes from the diatonic major scale to avoid any clashes or dissonant tones. For now, we're trying to keep everything sounding nice and simple. So here's a major scale. So we want to use a note from the scale, or below, or if we're using both, so we're trying to keep within the scale. We don't want to go, sounds a bit off. So that's what we mean by using notes from the scale. It's a good idea to learn how to play the top line along with the bass line without the other notes from the chord. So here's our inversion, here's our bass line, but we'll take out these 2 notes, we'll take these 2 away to make it simpler. So it's a good idea for you to learn how to do that in order for you to get a real feel for the melody. So moving on. We can end on 2 Ds if you want to, but if we look to the diagram, all I did there was focus on the red line that comes down here with these dots here. And I focused on the larger circles on this side to play the bass line. So we'll give you some time to practice that before we move on to the next segment. So now that you can play the bass line with the top line, you can try putting a trill on every note or a trill on every other note. It's up to you. It's also sometimes nice to repeat the top line note instead of adding an ornament. I call this a pedal. So I will repeat this 4 times for each time instead of doing a trill. So that was just the pedal version. But now let's experiment and I'll try and do a trill in there instead. Then I'll come down. So this time I'm going to do every note. But then I might do a trill and then a pedal, or a trill, then the normal note. So I may just go carry on to the pedal, then nothing here, then trill there, pedal here, trill there, pedal there, trill there, pedal there. So now let's move on to our next ornament, which is the up mordent. This is created by pressing on, above, on, like so. So I'm going to play this very simply, just one mordent per chord. So you're going to need to do this enough times to make it easy for you, like everything else. Just have to practice. So what you could do is have the mordent carrying on into a pedal for that particular note, like this. So each time I'm doing a mordent first, but then carrying on into a pedal. So we could have trill, mordent, trill, mordent, trill, mordent, trill, mordent. So we also have the lower mordent, which is created by pressing on, below, on. So we could go through the whole progression doing that one, or we could add the pedal. And lastly, we have the turn, which is created by pressing on, above, on, below, on. So we can have our pedal running through, but we can change between the turn, the upper mordent, or the lower mordent. So let's give that a go. So I'm going to stick to the turns for now. So turn and pedal this is. This time, what should I do? Mordent, turn, mordent, turn. This is the upper mordent, and the turn. So you can take that however far you want to take it. So once you get to this stage, you can think about bringing the other two notes back from the chord to fill up the space. So we could go through by pressing this chord and adding a mordent on top. Or you could do that with the turn, or mix it up even. So I'll try it with the turn. So another approach would be to do the ornament and then follow that up with the two notes from the arpeggio. So we could go, which is the mordent, followed up by the arpeggio notes each time. So another approach is to take this up an octave, which allows us to have a left hand spread of the power chord. The right hand can still have arpeggios. So let's give that one a go. So arpeggios, now we can put the turn here. Another turn. Arpeggios. Now maybe we'll do some trills this time. So arpeggio, trill, arpeggio. What now? Pedal. Pedal and turns, I think. So after this, the last thing to add would be the idea of using motifs. Motifs are short musical ideas, and often they fall into the hand position where your 5 fingers would fall. So a nice easy motif would be 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. So I may do something like so in a moment I'm mixing arpeggios, and then every now and then I might do 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. We could use another motif which might be 5, 3, 1, 3, 5, 3. So yeah, I'm not sure what I was doing there, but I was just mixing them all up. So that's what I want you to do. So take the turns, the mordents, the trills, the arpeggios, the motifs, mix them all up and see what happens. Well done for making it this far, and good luck.